Welcome to the Heart and Soul Podcast, a space where words, people, and stories matter. This podcast is different than most in that we are live each week on Zoom so that those of you who join us can take an active part in the conversation. At the same time, if you just want to listen and enjoy, that's fine as well. Whatever makes you comfortable. I'm just glad you're here. Every week I will podcast from my home, and our conversation will take place in different rooms in my home, each having its own theme. Tonight, we're in the Heart and Soul listening room, where our conversations will be formed by my experiences as a newspaper columnist, radio commentator, and talk show host. We'll explore timely issues, personal insights, and stories of the day in conversations that surely will last with us long after the podcast ends. There will be a Heart and Soul food room, or if you like, Heart and Soul food room, up to you. It's inspired by my Buffalo-style interviews with celebrated chefs and bakers and features on popular food events. Conversations in this room will examine and celebrate the role food plays in our lives through cooking, eating, traditions, and the way food brings us together. Then we have a Heart and Soul on the road room. And I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but stay with me here for a minute. The conversations in this room will be related to my 64 and more interview series when I traveled the United States and Ireland to interview people with diverse backgrounds and experiences. We'll share inspiring stories, personal wisdoms, and unique perspectives shaped by actual experiences of the people that we meet. And then, no matter what room we're in, at the close of each podcast, we'll take a few minutes to reflect on the words, people, and stories we've discussed and why they matter. Some Heart and Soul podcasts will have valued partners and meaningful guests who will join us along the way. Tonight, I want to introduce you to one of those most important partners, my producer, my post-production guru, and valued friend, Colleen Young. Colleen?
We are so excited that you're here joining us. Christina and I have been working on the launch of this podcast for a couple weeks now. I grew up on the same street where Christina's daughter Lisa lives. So through her, I got to meet her lovely mother, Christina, and it's been an honor, and I'm excited to work with her. And we are just so happy that you all are here, and we hope that you'll pencil us in every Thursday.
Wow, I couldn't have paid you to do that. Colleen promotes or produces a number of other podcasts, including one for the Biden Institute. So I am honored that she is part of Heart and Soul. I also look forward to the youthful and fun way of looking at life that Colleen will bring to our conversations. Lastly, I want to thank you, the people who have come to this Heart and Soul podcast tonight. Each one of you is here for a special reason. And it is my hope that Heart and Soul will inspire and challenge all of us in ways that will make life more fulfilling, maybe a little less stressful, and definitely bring the joy. So let's get started. Tonight, we're exploring something I've come to think of as a tapestry of our lives, the threads of people, moments, and experiences that help shape who we have and are continuing to become. I have 3 questions on this topic to help guide us in our conversation, and I'm going to ask you the first one now so you can start thinking about it. When you consider your own life story, can you see certain threads, people, experiences, moments that help shape who you've become or are becoming? Kind of interesting, right? The idea for this topic really came into focus for me over the past couple of weeks, beginning with 2 conversations I had within hours of each other. One was with a 19-year-old college student. The other was with a professional who is almost 80 years old. Despite the 60-year difference in those ages between them, the 2 of them talked to me about the very same thing, what they wanted to do with their lives. And that struck me because it reminded me that no matter our age, we are always in the process of becoming who we are meant to be. The question is, how do we discover who that person is? To get us started, I'd like to share 2 short stories of life tapestries, beginning with my mom. Today's the 27th anniversary of my mother's passing, so it seemed appropriate that the tapestry of her life be front and center for my first podcast. My mother grew up on a dairy farm, the youngest of 8 children, 6 girls and 2 boys. By the time she came along, her older sisters were capably taking care of all the household chores with their mother. So she was sent outside to work the farm with her father and brothers. It was unusual for a girl in that era of the 1930s to be assigned chores traditionally reserved for the men. But Mom took to the tasks as if she was born to them. Looking back now, I can see that the threads of her early life prepared her perfectly for who she would become, which was one of the first woman executives in the Buffalo banking industry. Now, don't get me wrong. Mom wasn't wearing a suit and spending her days in a cushy corner office. She was driving around Western New York in a big old white van filled with tools and equipment clanking around in the back because her executive job was being in charge of property management. That meant she was responsible for planning and oversight on all new construction and renovations, as well as maintenance and repairs for the bank's headquarters in Buffalo and all of its branches in the 93-mile area from Niagara Falls to Olean, New York, primarily working with men. Since her passing, I can't tell you how many of those men have told me how much they hated to see her pull in a construction site in that old white van because she was so tough in what she expected from them. No doubt a strength she learned in working the farm with her father and her brothers. In that same way, when I started thinking about this podcast and whether I was qualified to host discussions like this, I started thinking about key experiences from the tapestry of my life. I realized that from my youngest memories, getting C's on my report card for self-control because I couldn't stop talking in school, through to telling stories to my children and grandchildren, hosting salon discussions in my home, my work as a newspaper columnist, magazine feature writer, radio talk show host, and as a PR media specialist in my consulting career. My whole life has been about telling stories. And despite the obstacles I have faced in finding my storyteller's voice, including those who told me to sit down and shut up, that I talk too much or say inappropriate things, the more of my life I have given to storytelling, the happier and more fulfilled I have become. And the more I've given of myself to becoming myself, the more successful I have become, by every definition of the word. So, I'd love to hear from all of you tonight about the threads in your life stories that have helped shape who you are becoming. And back to that question I asked earlier, when you think about your own life story, can you see certain threads, people, experiences, or moments that help shape who you've become or who you are becoming? So, this is always where the icebreaker comes. Anybody willing to share? Wow, nobody? Okay.
I'll
I
break
will.
the ice.
I was
Yeah,
like,
go ahead. Go,
I,
Tony.
well,
Hi,
Christina, just
Tony.
like
Oh,
you.
so nice to
Hi.
see you.
Yeah. I'm a talker too. If you ask me for my opinion, you give me a second, I will have one most times. But it didn't take me a lot to think about that question. Because it is something that I have thought about on the regular for at least the past 30 years. And then reflecting on that. So the first one would be kind of doing my own thing, um, not necessarily going along with the crowd. And I always think back to I want to be a cheerleader. And in my neighborhood, the Boys and Girls Club, it wasn't doing cheerleading. I was too old, and the person that they had recruited to do the cheerleading coaching said, "Oh, you can go cheerlead at this place." And I was like, "Cool." I didn't know anybody. So my first year cheerleading, I cheerleaded with a bunch of girls, a mean coach. Um, but I took the bus, I went because I wanted to do it. Um, and that's something that has that that is definitely one thread that has showed up time and again. And then the other one,
So Tony, can I just ask you, would you call
yeah,
that determination then? Is that a determined, regardless of what anybody tells you, you're going to do it regardless?
yeah. Um, and it's a double-edged sword because it's not everything. There are things that I think about doing, like just even podcasting and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, that would be really neat to do. But I'm like, why would anybody want to hear what I have to say? Like, so it's this like this back and forth thing. The things that I know and I'm confident about, I have no problem talking about. But even if I know it, I think, well, why would someone want to hear what the hell I have to say? So kind of
I
depends.
understand totally.
Yeah,
And so you were
yeah.
going to go on. I interrupted you. You had another point, and I'm sorry.
And so the other one is mental health, mental illness. It has been in it's woven is a good word um, to describe it, and it's been there my whole life. My paternal grandmother um, was diagnosed with schizophrenia, even though my parents like protected us from that. It was there
Mhm.
for a long time, and it has clearly been a part of my life, even when I kind of resisted it. When it was time to go to college and go to school and stuff like that, I part of me knew I wasn't ready to do that. Um, so I went in a different direction. I didn't go to school for counseling. I was in my 30s. So um, it is part of
A definite
it's in
thread,
my
yeah.
DNA. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a
So
really powerful thread that you've just shared with us, Tony, and I thank you for that. And I
yeah.
wonder, not everybody is able to share those kind of personal threads, but I think that a lot of us have some type, whether it's a physical or a mental health thread that runs through us that, heart conditions or mental illness or alcoholism or all those different kinds of things that are part of your DNA and you can't deny them. So thanks for all that, Tony. That was very compelling. Thank you. Anybody else have some ideas about their threads that they'd like to share?
I'll be happy to share.
Oh, thank you, Kathy Calabrese.
You're welcome, Christina F. And that was really, a beautiful statement, Tony. I enjoyed hearing, your story. And I'm a therapist. I've been one for 40 years. And, in my life, I hadn't really planned anything. I just sort of showed up in the next experience and responded, to it. But I was really thinking about this, and I'll tell you when it started. My thread is goes back to when I was 4 years old. And my father sustained a horrific automobile accident. He was hospitalized for a year. And my mom was not working, and she had two very small, my brother was 1 year old at that point in time. And so my grandparents stepped in. And I learned from a very young age that family must care for one another in really hard times. So eventually, my grandparents bought a home. We were living in the Kenfield projects at the time because it was post World War II baby boom and everybody was living there, it seemed. So they bought a home, a double home. So I always have lived with my grandparents, and my grandparents were the rock and salvation, and they took care of my family. I do not know where I would be today without my grandparents. So I really developed a strong understanding for family and for caring for one another. And my dad was an alcoholic and a drug addict. And
Wow.
he suffered terribly. And it's a very long story, but my father was also a kind, gentle man.
Mm.
So it was a very unusual mix, but I I felt I mean, I really loved my dad. And I think that started, I began to care for him. I was the oldest in the family. And so, I was always worried about him and took care as well as I could. So as I got older, and went to college, I became interested in special education. Again, it is, serving people who have specific needs. And I've always gravitated to that. But it was my grandparents, and my great grandfather came to live with us.
Wow.
Yes, because he was in the last stage of his life. He died. He was 1 month shy of 100 years old. And I remember the day my grandmother opened the door downstairs and called upstairs to us and said, Grandpa died last night. I mean, it was that deep intimacy, sharing of life, of the most profound experiences in life.
Yeah.
And it was normal. I mean,
Right.
it's just, that's what
There
you
was no
did.
cushion. It was just, yeah, well,
Yeah.
we're down here and Grandpa died. We're just letting you know.
Right. We're letting you know. And that's, and
I yell up the stairs. There was no,
yell up the stairs. Exactly.
right.
So my grandparents were two extraordinary selfless people.
So Kathy, let
They
me ask you, if they
Sure.
formed you as a grandparent, do you believe that the way you are as a grandparent now has anything to do with how they,
I say no only because, and I adore my grandchildren, but only because our life circumstances are so different.
don't live together?
Yes, so different. Um, But I must say, if anything were to befall the children, I mean, they know they could live here,
Right.
they with me. But I think it was that thread of you share life, you understand deeply that you are connected to these people and they need you. My grandparents were extraordinary people. And it was interesting because you and I have had a lot of conversations about this, about how quiet I am typically, not tonight, but
Well, I kind
my,
of begged you to talk tonight, so I'm grateful. Thank you.
I know, and I can't resist when you beg.
Thank you. One of the
So,
few, but that's okay. That's another topic for another night.
so my grandfather was an unbelievably quiet man. Also, his mother, and this is where the family systems piece comes in, because I'm a family systems therapist as well as a trauma therapist. Anyway, his mother um, was orphaned in Australia because of their family home burned. Apparently, this is the lore, this is the story, burned, and there was no one there to take them in. I have a feeling it's because one of my great grandmothers, and I knew her very well, she also lived in our house. And
What a
she,
commune,
yes, it was like a family.
pretty much.
They would come and go.
Yeah.
And but anyway, she and her brother were put on a ship, sent back to England, where there was a grandfather, and the grandfather refused to take them in because I think one of her parents was a petty criminal. That's where England sent all their criminals. They sent them to Australia. Okay. So that started a whole thing with me. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But so he suffered a lot because he was expected to really be the head of the family. It was very interesting. So my grandfather was I know, a deep, deep, deep man, but he rarely talked.
So
He,
that's the thread of you talk for your occupation. You
right.
listen, but you're not someone who steps out in public and speaks, but also you are someone who is a caregiver to so many people. So both of
Right.
these threads are
Right.
from
That's what
family.
I'm, and
Yeah.
the family systems piece, my choice to become a family systems therapist, it's my choice to train teachers to work with children with all kinds of challenges.
Caregivers. You're
It all
caregivers.
goes back to my
Yeah.
father, my grandfather, yes, and my
Thanks,
grandmother.
Kathy. That was a lot.
Mhm.
That's wow. There should be a book about the Calibres. Well, what was your
Oh,
maiden name?
Lappin. I'm Irish.
Oh, hi, holy month to you too.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Kathy. That was a lot.
You're
And
welcome.
it
Yeah,
told me a lot about things that I didn't know about you. So I'm glad you learned that. Thank you.
well, I thought about the question.
Yes, thank
So
you.
I did my homework.
Good job. Okay. Anyone
Christina,
else like
we have Mike with his hand up. So go ahead, Mike.
Mike's got his hand up? Wow.
Yeah. Mike, you're on mute. There you go.
I'm off mute.
Mike, hi.
Hi,
Christina.
Michael.
Hello, Dr. C. It's a pleasure to be here, and typical Christina asks these probing questions. And as I look back, there certainly are some threads, and it's ironic because I've been sort of working on this story here. But I would have to say my thread has to begin of what shaped me early on and has continued, into the seventh decade. And that's easily my mother, who was brought up during the Depression, second generation Italian, and living on the West Side. And her father died when she was 9, and she had to become the mother and father of a house there on welfare, living in the projects and in apartments. But her survival was the base of her life was around the Catholic Church, Holy Cross on the Old West Side. So growing up, her spiritual beliefs truly gave me a spiritual base that has continued my whole life and has really helped, in my eyes, save my life and put me in the position I'm in today. But then her lessons that my brothers and I picked up and have really kept, and I'm proud that all three of us follow, and that is treat everyone like you'd like to be treated. And she also showed us, when we hardly had anything growing up, we always had enough or found enough to take care of other families in need. And these are lessons that me and my brothers are still, following to today. I think when I was 22 years old, I was one of the youngest sports writers and reporters hired at the Buffalo Courier Express. And the very first day I walk in, the legendary sports columnist Phil Rinaldo, who's hardly ever in the office, but he came in because he had heard that was going to be my first day. And I mean, this guy was revered by everybody. He pulled me aside and took me upstairs to in that building that is now the diocese. They're selling it again, on the top floor with a log cabin that the Connors family used to have. That was sort of like their clubhouse or, corporate boardroom or whatever. It was literally a log cabin because they're big hunters.
I didn't know that. Cool.
And he took me in there and, sat me down and said, all right, let me tell you what's going on here. He said, you're a good writer, or you're a good storyteller, and never lose that enthusiasm and never lose that ability to tell the story, and gave me a couple of tips to follow. And then he told me something that was even more provocative, is that he said, we're both Italian American, and you're going to find that people are going to try to knock you down because of your nationality. And he said, just ignore them and keep going on. Don't get into a fight. Just get away from them and just keep going where your passion of writing and writing about these kids and schools are, and you'll do pretty well in this career. And,
Mike, did you, with your family being so devoted to the Catholic Church, and you are as well, did you ever think about becoming a priest?
It's funny. That's really what my mom wanted me to do. And I remember we used to literally have do the mass right there in our dining room. And, my brothers reluctantly like hung around, and I don't even think they lasted the whole thing, but my mother it was pretty wild. But yeah, but then I diverted quickly, and I had no desire to get into that. And now I'm even more disgusted only with what I see in the Buffalo Diocese. I'm down here in Florida, and I mean, these priests are preaching, and that's really what they should do. I mean, the whole pedophile thing, I would have thrown them in jail right from the start, but that's only me.
But we digress.
I think then obviously a key person on my thread has to have been, in 1983 when I, broke a story that Buffalo was going to lose its pro team and Bob Rich, the only guy to save it, and he hires me. And his teaching of me to be a businessman in the professional sports world was certainly a game changer, and something that I'm will always be totally indebted to him and his family for. And then my brother Tony was a key thread that 30 years ago this year convinced me that my life had become unmanageable because of my drinking, and he took me to a AA meeting, and this year I was able to celebrate 30 years, without a drink.
Well done, Mike.
And I think then, ironically, a person who just recently came into my life on December 4th has become a key thread in what I think is probably going to be the most exciting chapter of my life. And that's Dr. Daniel Amen, a renowned psychiatrist and founder of the Amen Clinics. And I went there for a brain spec, but prior to that, I went to his book launch and literally got a one-on-one with him. And in talking to him, he said that, this brain health issue that I have of depression and traumatic brain injury is not a life sentence. And whatever they find as deficits in my brain can be repaired if I'm willing to put the work into it. And then I got a game plan of holistic, healing, and it was neat because they were in total endorsement of what the alpha stim and neural feedback that Dr. Calabrese delivers. And as I told her, as I'm writing a book about these situations, a lot of what she told me over the past, many years that I've been going there is exactly what Amen has in his book. So, she was really ahead of the curve in a lot of those cases. But the key words that Amen told me were, he said, you've got to identify, you got to stop the roller coaster and identify what are your true passions in life for the rest of your life, and what are the goals to get there. And before you answer yes or no to any question, ask, is it going to get me closer to that or divert me?
So
and
Mike,
that's been a game changer.
The second question that we have, and then I'm going to, ask for someone else who wanted to talk, but is there a certain thread or threads in your life right now, an interest, challenge, passion, or person that is helping to shape who you are becoming? So clearly, Dr. Amen and Dr. Calabrese are those people in your life right now.
So I answered both the first and second question.
You are a superstar, Mike Villani. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Michael, for your kind words.
All right.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to answer either the first or the second question at this point?
Hi, Christina. It's Kathy Donahue.
Kathy. Hi, Kath. How are you?
Hi, Colleen. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm sitting here listening to this and thinking about the thread in my life, and I go back to my grandmother and my aunts, my aunt who was a nurse, but you know what? The thing that I thought about, and this is unusual, maybe, or controversial, maybe is probably a better word. I feel like the thread in my life that has determined a lot of who I am and what I've done is my Catholic upbringing and going to school through the Mercy Nuns and the Mercy Hospital School of Nursing. And, back then, totally different than what it is now, of course, but it really has directed me through life. And,
In what ways, Kathy?
well, I'm not a super religious person now, although I still practice. But the values, the experiences I had, have all lent itself to help me make some decisions about life. For example, at one point, I had left the Buffalo area and I went to work in the Washington, D.C. area. And I found myself in a totally different place, which is really what I wanted. I wanted to experience something new. I was 50 plus years old at that time, but I knew that I wanted to grow in some way. And so I put myself in a completely different religious organization. It was the Seventh-day Adventist religious, so it was
that's a big,
very, very different, very different. So, but what I found out there was really who I am and what I believed in, because I was a nurse manager. I was a director of nursing at that time, and there were things that went on in that hospital that I thought that I could, in my naivety, just get along with, but I couldn't reconcile myself to a lot of the things. So, and I guess what I'm saying is that was because of, where I came from and what I experienced, as a teenager and a young adult, in the Catholic religion system of healthcare, so that was it. So the thread was, even though, I've changed immensely because of that experience, that thread led me there and determined some of the things that I experienced and how I experienced them.
So I don't know if you were here in the very beginning, but the conversation, how this got started, was a 19-year-old and an almost 80-year-old had a conversation with me within hours.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Okay. So is there, onto the second question, is there a certain thread or threads in your life right now? Because we never stop becoming. That's really the key concept of this whole conversation tonight, right? You think, oh my God, I'm 60 years old, whatever it is. No, every day, because, you're constantly looking at, do I really want to do this? Or is it time for me to try to do this or that?
Right. Yeah.
Is there a certain thread in your life right now in the form of an interest, challenge, passion, or person that's helping to shape who you're becoming now?
Well, as you know, and Colleen knows, late in life, I found another relationship, and I would have to say Dennis has really shaped my life. He really has, and most of it is because he is someone who, we have very different views on things, but I've never feel like I can't express my views to him,
Wow,
and
impressive.
So that's great. And I don't know I've experienced a lot of wonderful things with him, travel and meeting different people through him. So that thread, actually goes back to high school too, as you know. So, this, and when I thought about the whole thing, I thought I would say my grandmother, because she's always been my hero. But
Why?
I have to say,
Why was she your hero?
I was the oldest of 11 children. And I used to go and spend 3 or 4 weeks during the summer with her all by myself. And it was I loved it. I just loved it. Being an only child, I hate to say it, and I apologize to my siblings whom I love dearly, but, I think I was meant to be an only child. I really do, So anyway, she gave me that experience. So, and she was just someone who, was always taking me on new adventures and experiencing new things. So it was fun.
She's a thread. She's a big thread, like you said. Yeah.
She was a big influence. Big influence.
Great.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. As you know, your grandmother, and being a grandmother now, I have to say both my mother and my grandmother were the examples for me, to be the grandmother that I am today and enjoying it so much.
That's a very sweet, sweet thing to say. I really enjoyed hearing that story. Thank you,
I know
Kathy.
you do. Yeah.
I do.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right. Do we have any other hands up, as Colleen's calling it?
I don't see any, but everyone was great.
All right, so we have one last question if anybody wants to come in and talk about it a little bit more. And this one, I don't know if we have any, I don't know if my granddaughter showed up. Again, some younger, like the teenage people, and I don't know that they did, and it can be for anybody. I don't mean it that way. But what thread do you feel is just beginning to show up in your life tapestry? And Colleen, do you have any ideas about having conversation about this as well?
I'd say, so I'm 32, and right now in my life is a very funny, um, like moment where you go to happy hour, and I have friends who are expecting. I have friends who, are getting engaged or getting married, or, friends who are worried about the next promotion, or, it's review season right now in the corporate world. So did you get a bonus? And why are they
Wow.
taxed so much? But I just think that it's a really interesting time because people either have already started families or, already have gotten married, etc., or you're focusing on your job or you're trying to balance it all. But it's quite interesting. Now I go to happy hour and we compare, what is your work's benefits package or what is your maternity leave offer? And or like,
Does it make you
how-
feel old?
yeah. Um, yes. But I have texts with
Oh, you're
one
muted,
of
sweetie. I can't hear you anymore.
can
Something
you hear
happened.
me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
So I know a couple of you were talking about being raised Catholic, and as was I, and my mom is on this call, Ann Ferris, but I call myself a recovering Catholic. I grew up going to Immaculate Conception in East Aurora, and I have lifelong friends from it, but it is hard to adjust and change from it, and learn how to live past it, in my opinion. But I also have lifelong friends from it. I have a friend, Katie, who I met in kindergarten at Immaculate. And this morning she was texting me excited about her new high yield savings account. And I was like, oh God, we're ruined. But, it is so interesting how so much changes. But yeah, my mom is on here. Three of my sisters are on this call, Caroline, Molly, and Megan.
Yay,
They're all
family.
older.
Thank you. Thank you for your
Yeah,
support tonight.
yeah, they're all on here, and they're older than me and they all have kids and live elsewhere. But I think this is just a pivotal time. I'm 32 and it's just kind of exciting. You don't know what's next, and that excites me. I don't
And
want to
for
know
people
what's
who
coming.
don't know you, you are not married and don't have children.
Correct.
So they wouldn't necessarily know that about you. That's all
So
I'm
I am
saying.
living the life.
And now you know why I'm so glad she's here, because Colleen makes us laugh all the time. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So
So we'll see.
do you think that there's a thread that is just beginning to show up? Do you believe in something that's just beginning to show up that could be moving you towards your, who you're becoming, or not yet?
Yeah. I mean, so I find myself spiritual, not religious. I fully believe in God and I fully believe in my guardian angels. And as Kathy, who also was on, knows, and obviously my mom and my sisters know, and Christina and her daughter Lisa, but my dad passed 4 months ago, and 4 months ago yesterday. And I truly, truly feel when I'm like doing something right or doing something that dad's like, yes, go do it. And almost I feel him doing it more now than the past year that he was alive, because he couldn't text, he wasn't really conversational. But now I'm gonna use that as my guide for a little bit. My dad loved work and he loved hearing about work and he loved any successes that we had. He more so would tell you what my sister Megan, who's on the call, did for work. But he just would love to always hear about all of that. So right now I'm just telling myself, like, he's gonna let me know. Like, I've been at my full-time job for 6.5 years now. And if you know anyone who works there, I love my job and I'm grateful to be employed. But, sometimes when you're my age and you hit that moment, am I in the right place? Am I at the right company? Should I stay here? Should I look for something different? Or is this safe? Is this, what I know? And, is it a great thing that I should build with? And, again, I just find that exciting. Like, I'm excited. I'm grateful for any of the opportunities that I have, but I'm also excited to see what's next. Again, I don't have kids. I'm not married, so the world is my oyster, and I don't think that I will always be able to say that, possibly. If other people rely on me and where I am, then that will change. But for now, I'm enjoying just packing it up. Last weekend I was in Dallas. It's just fun to just do what I want.
But I think that's a really interesting question going back, or an observation when you said, right now, I'm just going to trust in where I am and what I'm doing and try to figure out what feels good to go forward and where I want to go. I would like to think that any of us on this call, regardless of our age, could have that same sense of excitement and looking forward. And I'm not sure we do. I know I've been in, it's hills and valleys where sometimes you're like, yeah, this is awesome. And sometimes it's like, what am I doing? But I think that if we can go back to the threads, right? Like, I think that's where, like, your thread, one of your threads is your dad, right? And having that feeling of real support. And I just think there are threads of who we are. And sometimes I think we lose that. I think we lose that memory of the excitement that we had, like you're talking about when we were your age, or when we got into our late 40s and we're like, yeah, the kids are almost gone and this is what's going to happen. And you get so excited to think about the opportunities lying ahead. But sometimes as you get older, you forget about that sense of excitement because for some people, so, well, I'm 65 now, life is over. You know what I mean? And I think that the people tonight that we're listening to, I'm really excited because there's a real diversity in age here, but the people that are talking about how they're excited about what they're doing or the threads that have brought them to where they are. I don't know. I just think it's really fun to hear this. So thank you, everybody. Anybody else? We have all Colleen's family. Nobody wants to talk. You're the only talker in the family. I don't believe it.
Believe it. My mom is nodding.
Okay. Well, okay, Mom. I hear you. Anybody else? Happy to have more people join in if you're willing to talk and feel comfortable. And if not, no problem.
This is an interesting question, and as I listened to Colleen, I appreciated it because it's an odd thing. So I was widowed young, so I was 30, and that thread of like wanting to do my thing and I'm gonna do this and that really carried me for a really long time. And truly, I am slightly surprised at 55 that I'm sort of changing directions. Burnt out in different ways, for a lot of different reasons. Middle management, no matter what fields you're working in, but particularly behavioral health, is difficult. And but I had a vision at 30, 35, like what I thought it was going to look like, and private practice and teaching. And over the course of 25 years, that vision became muddier. So it's not clear. But a couple years ago, I was like, okay, I'm going to get my PhD because I recognize that in the world that I work in, if anyone wants to listen to you, you have to have these letters at the back of your name,
right,
to advocate for, like, on like a bigger level. But I alternate back and forth. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, what's my end goal? My significant other is retired. He is a little bit older than me, but he worked at the post office, right? And I'm like, I'm never retiring. Like, so I'm trying to to reconnect with that excitement thing that Colleen was talking about. And it's the first time it's never not been clear as an adult, like full grown adult, because I don't know what the end is. Not that I'm not excited for it, but I don't know what it looks like.
So how
Yeah,
will you try, like what, and maybe you haven't yet, you're just kind of trying to figure it out. But my
yeah.
question to you is, are there threads from your past, from your
Mhm.
family, from other things you've done that could help guide you to that, a clearer picture of what it is you want to become?
I am on this initially, it looks like uncharted waters, right? So, but there is some similarities. My dad was a white collar, growing up, worked in an office, unexpectedly got laid off when he was like 40 some years old. And
Yeah,
he decided he didn't want to do that. So him and my mother up and moved to Las Vegas. Um,
big move.
and I was in my 20s or whatever, and they were there for 25 years. So in some ways, that is a little bit of the thread, like both my parents, the stories that they've told. My dad was born in Italy, came to, America. He took himself down to the immigration office to become a naturalized citizen. His parents didn't do that. He did that. So there is a little bit of that that's
Risk
there.
takers. It sounds like they were both risk takers to some extent.
Yes, yes. My
So do
mom,
you feel like maybe you should embrace that more?
I'm trying. And that's
It's not
where
easy.
and in some ways I have, like I left my pretty decent salary job at a mental health agency about a year and a half ago, um, to just do counseling for a small psychiatry office. And I'm not making what I was making. It's not freaking me out, but it also contributes to that, like it,
Uncertainty.
where am I going, right? Like,
Right,
are there
right.
other things? Like, what do I want to do that isn't four walls? I'm trying. Yes,
Maybe tonight's conversation can help you,
yes,
further the thought process because it takes
yes,
time. It's not oh, I'll
yeah.
just do this, right? But as Colleen was saying, when you take a step and that feels good, take another step and keep taking those steps until you get to the point where you are all of a sudden a whole step ahead, a whole section ahead of where you were before, and you're feeling confident. You're feeling like, okay, I've come this far and this feels good, so I'm going to keep going.
It does present itself. I know it does because it's happened my entire life. Like things present themselves.
Right.
So it's sort
Exactly.
of, someone said trusting it. Um,
Right.
but it's so scary.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there is excitement in the fear. You have to learn to trust yourself and then embrace it and go for it, Tony. And you have done that in the past. You just have to look back and look at how you've done that before, and you've always been okay. You'll do it.
Yeah.
I know you will. Mike, I know you've got your hand. Tony, thank you for that. I'm not discarding it. Thank you very much for that. Mike, you're raising your hand and we'll let you finish up here.
Okay, just the two ladies that were previous talking about looking to where they want to be and how they feel and what the future is going to hold. All I could go back to is when Dr. Raymond looked me in the eye and said, "What is your passion?" And he said, "You're not going to be able to tell me right now, but go back and think and sit down and really write it out and then narrow it down and don't have 30 of them. But what is it most important in your life right now? And then what are the goals that you need to do to achieve that?" And once I did that, it really gave me a good roadmap of where I'm going to go. And certainly you could change it any time along the way.
Right.
But what it's done is it's also, and he also emphasized this, that you have to have a strong self-discipline and a great inner desire that, hey, I do want to achieve these goals. And
Right.
the only way I could do it is you've got to change the way you're currently doing what you're doing. And that is making you not feel like you're totally fulfilling yourself. So I would just ask you to follow that practice and see where that leads you.
And I think, Mike, the caveat that I want to add on to the end of everything everybody said is you're never too old. Like there is
No.
no end of becoming. It continues on until you take your last breath. So why would you shortchange yourself by when you get to 60 or 70 or whatever, saying, I don't know, I probably just need to retire. Wait, wasn't there something more you wanted? Wasn't there something else? Like when you were that, 40 something and you thought, when I retire, I'm going to do this. And now you think, oh, no, I can't do it. Yeah, you can if you want,
Well, Christina, I'll leave you with this. My good buddy, Sammy V, we both have entered our 7th decade, and Sammy has taught me every start of a decade, he has this big, elaborate party just to celebrate. And he started, I think, like at 40. And when we hit the 7th decade, we basically agreed that we've eliminated the number. When people put down what your age is, we now answer ageless. And literally by doing that, it has made a much better feeling psychologically.
Yeah. I mean, why? We just get to bogged down with numbers, and it just doesn't matter. So this has been great. Is there anybody else that would like to add anything before we finish and close up? Can't believe it's done already. What a good night. All right. Well, first of all, I can't see everybody because I'm in a little screen because I had to read my copy, but this is now the Heart and Soul Reflection. And Colleen, this is where you and I get to chit chat a little bit, but I think tonight was a really good start for us, and that for first podcast, I think we did okay. And I am amazed at what the people that came. Thank you to your family. Thank you to my family. Thank you to Mike and Kathy and Tony and anybody else I can't. Oh, Liesel's here too. Hi, sweetheart. How are you? But everybody who came, it was amazing. I'm impressed with the level of conversation.
I knew we could do it.
When we stood here in my conversation room this afternoon and my face was bright red and we couldn't make anything work, I was not sure, Colleen.
I know, I was there.
You kept saying it'll be okay. But anyway,
I was like, we'll be fine. We'll be fine.
We'll be fine.
But yes,
yeah.
Sincerely, I thank you all for coming. You could be doing anything tonight. I know there's a Sabres game on, and we appreciate you being here. This means a lot, and I also just really am grateful to be proven right to Christina that it would be a success.
That's what it always comes down to with you young brats. I just want to show you that I was right all the time. Well, again, thank you everybody for joining me in this heart and soul. Carolyn Smith. Hi, Carolyn.
That's my sister.
Oh, Carolyn, thank you. I was glad that you came. I hope you enjoyed listening. And that's the other thing. I had several people come to me and say, I'm not really comfortable talking and I'm not sure I want to come. And I'm like, you don't have to come and talk. You don't even have to be on screen. But I think what's really so awesome is that to gather with a group of people like we did tonight, and the people who talked, I thought, brought wonderful stories to the table, and they allow us to think more clearly in a way we weren't thinking before we had this conversation tonight about who we are and who we want to become, and the threads of our life that can help us. Sometimes when you don't know, stop and take a minute and look back and think about the things that you wanted to do and the threads that came from those before you, because they all matter, and it comes together to, the dreams that you have. So I encourage you to figure out who you want to continue to become, because you're never too old to keep becoming. So thank you for joining me in my first Heart and Soul podcast, Colleen and I. I hope our conversation stays with you, inspires you, and brings you back again to this special place where people, words, and stories matter. Thursdays, 7 p.m., same Zoom link, whole new conversation, whole different room. And if you have a topic you'd like to suggest, please send me an email at christinaapt@hotmail.com or through my website, christinaapt.com. I'd be happy to hear a conversation topic you'd like to bring up, and it can be about anything that you think would be interesting to the group. And please tell more people, please share this stuff. Let's grow this, because I think there's value, and it's been a wonderful night. So thank you all.